Welcome to Creature Guide Live Daily News. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ethan. Today we're going over a new ornithomimid discovery, or an ostrich-like dinosaur, as well as a new proto-mammal discovery, and as well as what's going on with red deer over in Ireland, and as well a prehistoric or ice age discovery over in New Mexico, as well as what seems to be going on with cougars over in Vancouver Island. So let's start off back in time, possibly during the Permian or the Triassic period. This definitely seems to be a very well preserved embryo of a proto mammal. Seems to be some species of Dicynodont. Very well preserved. Not the first species of or specimen of a. What happened?
Didn't
Oh, okay, not the first embryo to or egg to be discovered. So, from
Wait, it's
scientific.
not the first Dishonored egg?
No, there actually have been other Dicynodont eggs coming in from, I believe, South Africa from the late Permian to early Triassic, somewhere between 248 and 252 million years ago. So, 250 million year old embryonated Dicynodont egg found in South Africa. So, it is here once again. Using high resolution CT and synchrotron scanning. Paleontologists confirmed that the fossilized specimen from the early Triassic of the South African Karoo Basin contains an unborn Dicynodont Lystrosaurus, resolving a long standing mystery about whether early mammal ancestors laid eggs. The researchers suggest that Dicynodont eggs were likely soft shelled, explaining why they have remained elusive for so long. Interesting. I didn't know that they were soft shelled. I mean, it's almost like something due to their diet and maybe also due to the atmospheric or the environmental conditions. But there must have been some sort of robust layer because otherwise the eggs would easily break. But I think in terms of soft, it's not necessarily that they can easily break, but something to do with the calcified layer. I don't know what specifically. This looks really well preserved. Especially like the head, the whole body is nearly intact. So, Lystrosaurus represents a major group of primarily herbivorous vertebrates that were common during the Permian and Triassic periods. The ancient creature was between 1.8 and 2.4 meters or 6 to 8 feet in length. That is a huge Lystrosaurus. It's possible, maybe with the 6 feet 8. I'm not sure about that. But Lystrosaurus existed over in Antarctica, South Africa, around 252 million years ago, or even
Did you
two.
say Antarctica?
Yes, this was back when Antarctica was connected to Africa on Pangea during the early Triassic as well as the late Permian period. So, you could easily have animals travel back and forth, and at the time well, okay, here's the interesting thing. Actually, let's look up Lysiosaurus first. Is that at the time well, okay, Lystrosaurus. Um, at the time, and when it comes to Lystrosaurus, due to its overall anatomy and as well the atmosphere, the environmental conditions of Antarctica as well as South Africa at the time, it seems that these herbivores might have hibernated to an extent, or maybe um, have simply gone through a state of brumation, which is what brown bears, female polar bears, and their young American black bears go through during the late fall, winter, and early spring months.
Oh, here's a
So,
weird one.
yeah, I think this one's a bit skinny and has a bit too much of a um, it's its feet do resemble other lineages of proto-mammals or, other species of diapsids. However, actually not diapsids. I believe this is another lineage of the, Dicynodont lineage of proto-mammals. So, but what I'm saying is that I think the toes are a bit too thin. I think there should be more width. I think the skull looks relatively good. I think the tusk should be more robust or a bit wider. seem a bit too thin. The tusks, or the canines, as you would say, probably would be or fit better for certain other species of carnivorous proto-mammals at the end of the Permian, like different species of smaller gorgonopsians. But Lystrosaurus probably weighed somewhere around 80 to maybe 100 pounds, or a little over 40 kilograms. Oh, yeah, this is a really good picture. Over in a mountainous landscape in Antarctica or South Africa. Um, these
It says
animals,
Antarctica.
yeah, they're quite common in different fossil formations over in Antarctica as well as South Africa. Actually, they're probably the most common proto mammal to be discovered. Their lineage would continue into the corresponding Triassic period, or the upcoming Triassic period. Considering it does look like Lystrosaurus survived the Permian mass extinction. And when it comes to the Dicynodont lineage itself, it would extend up into the very end of the Triassic period, around 203 million years ago. So they would still live on for another 48 million years. Oh yeah, this is a really good showcase. Oh yeah, and I like the feet. They're a lot better here. Um, of how they're supposed to be replicating, I guess, two males fighting for breeding rights, or possibly even for grazing or browsing rights as well, but likely for females. It's very possible that they did experience wet and dry seasons at the time too, but it they were living in a bit of a cooler climate. There is also evidence for this proto mammal, or this Lystrosaurus, to have had fur. So we have found hair follicles on different specimens of preserved skin of Lystrosaurus. So, there weren't any dinosaurs at this point yet. The dinosaurs would not evolve for at least another 10 to 15 million years. See, so let's head back to the article. I do also like the canine structure in this instance. It looks a lot better. And I like how it just has a bit more of like a sort of stubby, graceful sort of locomotion. So, it had no teeth, but bore a pair of tusks in the upper jaw. Technically, tusks are teeth, but when we're referring to teeth that would allow them to chew their food, that is true. So, Lystrosaurus fossils are known from China, Europe, India, South Africa, and Antarctica. That is true. They're just much more common in South Africa and Antarctica. Literally, in certain fossil formations over in South Africa, you can't help but step on Lystrosaurus fossils. There's so many and they're so well preserved. It also kind of shows that Lystrosaurus was one of the most successful species of proto mammals to exist at the end of the Permian as well as the beginning of the Triassic period. And this geographic distribution was one of the earliest pieces of evidence used in support of the large supercontinent Pangaea. For over 150 years of South African paleontology, no fossil had ever been conclusively identified as a therapsid egg. That was the family I was trying to get in my head, the therapsids. Said University of the Witwatersrand's Professor Julian Benoit. This is the first time we can say with confidence that mammal ancestors like Lystrosaurus laid eggs, making it a true milestone in the field. That's weird because I swear that there are, well, I guess because we found an embryo, but we do have evidence for these animals laying eggs. They would continue to lay eggs into the Triassic period, as well as with the true mammals. But once the Jurassic hit, so after 200 million years ago, I believe somewhere between 170 and 200 million years ago, did different species of early mammals in the Jurassic period end up giving live birth. So, using advanced imaging, Professor Benoit and colleagues examined three perenniate Lystrosaurus specimens found in the Karoo Basin, South Africa. The Karoo Basin is where many specimens of Lystrosaurus, as well as different species of Gorgonopsians, other carnivorous proto-mammals in the region, have been discovered. Even certain species of large temnospondyl amphibians. So one of the specimens displayed a tightly curled posture, suggesting it was still inside an egg and completely lacked tusks. This is interesting. So this confirms that, or at least it looks like Lystrosaurus, when it was first developed, did not score tusks, which makes sense. I mean, when you look at different species of animals today that score tusks when they're adults, such as elephants, they do not have tusks when they're first born.
Yeah, that could be quite painful for their mothers.
Yeah, I would be very concerned. I'm trying to think though. There are certain, I swear there's certain young mammals that have somewhat spiky appendages when they're first born. Maybe I'm thinking it's not hitting me at the moment. So let's see. Understanding reproduction in mammal ancestors has been a long lasting enigma, and this fossil provides a key piece to this puzzle, said Dr. Vincent Fernandez, a researcher at the ESRF, the European Synchrotron. So let's also look up another species back in the late Permian or the early Triassic, if this is him, Cryostega. So Krystega. This is or the animal that, or the amphibian that I'm referring to, this temnospondyl, lived over in different parts of, I believe, South America, Africa, and Antarctica during, or on Pangaea during the early Triassic period. So around 249 million years ago.
Sometimes I feel like you're expecting me to be able to spell that.
Did it come up? Oh. Um, so also this is not necessarily a huge species. I believe it reached somewhere around 8 to 12 feet in length, which, well, for actually a wide variety of temnospondyl amphibians, this is a larger species, just not the largest, and could weigh somewhere around 4 to 500 pounds or a little over 200 kilograms. And, or I guess in terms of length, around 4 meters or almost probably around 3.8 meters. It was feeding on different species of proto-mammals, probably occasionally, definitely other species of amphibians as well as fish. So it was a semi-aquatic organism. It did have to come to land occasionally to rest, but for the most part, it does seem to be carnivorous. And what is interesting is that it looks like with Cryostega is that this species of temnospondyl had an extra layer of teeth in the upper jaw, which is similar to different species of mosasaur marine reptiles during the late Cretaceous. So it is quite interesting. Many species of marine reptiles or groups in general did not score this type of a dental structure. And the same case would be for many species of amphibians, even temnospondyls. But for some very fascinating reason that we don't know of, Cryostega developed that second layer. So you could say this was essentially almost like a small alligator to the early Triassic. So this animal did exist before different species of crocodilomorphs, as well as many species of archosaurs, would evolve into the Triassic around 235 to 245 million years ago. So let's head back to the article. I do think those were great models. So, it was essential that we scan the fossil just right to capture the level of detail needed to resolve such tiny, delicate bones. When I saw the incomplete mandibular symphysis, I was genuinely excited. Yeah, I mean, I would be quite thrilled as well. I mean, we've never found this type of an embryo before. Um, Even though eggs from Lystrosaurus are not necessarily unheard of, this is. I mean, this is rare for most prehistoric species, even when it comes to different species of dinosaurs, like the hadrosaurs, oviraptorids, but they wouldn't evolve until the Cretaceous. Um, at least the oviraptorids around 135 to 140 million years ago. The mandible, so the lower jaw, is made up of two halves that must fuse before the animal can feed. The fact that this fusion had not yet occurred shows that the individual would have been incapable of feeding itself. Wow. So, oh, I think was this from something else that they found that it looks like Lystrosaurus might have suckled its young. So This is evidence to an extent that, um, or possible evidence that before the Triassic period, proto mammals were already producing milk, unless I'm confusing that with another later proto mammal species.
Wait, didn't you say though they did it differently?
Well, it's very possible that they oozed milk out of certain glands, much like echidnas and platypuses do today in Australia. There are also echidna species over in Papua New Guinea as well, in the adjacent islands. According to the team, Lystrosaurus laid relatively large eggs for its body size. In modern animals, larger eggs typically contain more yolk, providing all the nutrients an embryo needs to develop independently. Without parental feeding after hatching, this strongly suggests that Lystrosaurus did not produce milk for its young, unlike modern mammals. Large eggs also offer. Oh, okay. So, yeah, I'm probably mixing it up for another species. Large eggs also offer another crucial advantage. They are more resistant to drying out. Yeah, but Lystrosaurus apparently has like a softer texture when it comes to the eggs. So the question is, how does that help with like drier conditions?
I have a question because I always forget this. How many of these type of things were there?
The Dicynodonts in general, believe we've found well over 40 different species. From the Permian and the Triassic period. They seem to evolve towards the very end of the Permian, somewhere between 255 to 260 million years ago.
Why do they always make it out like there's been one?
I think it's the case for many different lineages of proto mammals, as well as even certain lineages of dinosaurs, prehistoric mammals as well. They just show specific larger species, but technically the most famous species likely being Placerius, but it wouldn't evolve until the Triassic around 220 million years ago over in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. Only weighs some around 2,200 pounds or a little over 1,000 kilograms. There were larger species that could weigh probably around 4 tons. So, where were we? So, in the harsh, drought prone environment following the extinction, this would have been a critical survival trait. The findings further suggest that Lystrosaurus hatchlings were likely um, precocial, born at an advanced stage of development. These young animals would have been capable of feeding themselves, escaping predators, and reaching reproductive maturity quickly. Oh, so what did I mix up with earlier? Oh, was it that I confused the um it was a premature embryo and it wouldn't have been capable of well really living at that point. Okay, so my mistake on that. So the discovery not only provides the first evidence, direct evidence of egg laying in mammal ancestors, but also offers a powerful explanation for how Lystrosaurus came to dominate post-extinction ecosystems. This research is important because it provides the first direct evidence that mammal ancestors such as Lystrosaurus laid eggs, resolving a long-standing question about the origins of mammalian reproduction. Beyond this fundamental insight, it reveals how reproductive strategies can shape survival in extreme environments. By producing large, yolk rich eggs and precocial young, Lystrosaurus was able to thrive in the harsh, unpredictable conditions following the end Permian mass extinction. Well, I mean, it's good to see that we found this premature embryo. You could say it's unfortunate that it died, but it's good to, or it's just nice that we have it in the fossil record. Okay. Well, let's head forward in time. So, from the Irish Examiner, they're out of control at epidemic levels. Wild deer causing daily accidents in Kerry, counselors told. Well, what's interesting is that when it comes to native deer, specifically the red deer over in Ireland, roe deer not native to the island, there are very few of them. Like, they're endangered technically. There's only about maybe 1,500 red deer in Ireland. Um, now
Is that because
the
they drink too much when they're there and they get hit by cars?
yeah, or they decide to challenge the cars. But what is it? Oh, there are, however, tens of thousands of invasive Sika deer on in Ireland. Like somewhere between 30 to 35,000 invasive Sika deer. That's a big problem. I wonder if that's what they're referring to. despite this picture of red deer. It seems to be a very healthy bull or stag. Deer have been causing numerous collisions all over the county, with some insurance companies refusing to cover damage to cars. County Council heard. When is that? Yeah, that's uh not 1 square inch of Killarney National Park near major roads has been fenced off by the National Parks and Wildlife Service. Okay, it's fine.
What's wrong with this? Oh, it's a
Fawn. Yeah, I mean, these three look healthy. Yeah, he's definitely going through the rut. Look how just overall dense and thick his neck is. Wild deer numbers are so out of control in Killarney that animals are being found on roads 40 kilometers from the national park. It has been claimed. I mean that's fine. I'm trying to think. What is that? Somewhere around 15 miles, 15 20 miles. Not 1 square inch. I already said that. Accidents are now occurring daily, with cars being written off. It was claimed at the meeting in Trolley. It has been 7 years since Killarney Municipal District representatives met family members connected to a fatal accident linked to deer on the N72 near Foss. Independent councillor Brendan Cronin told the full meeting of Carey County Council. The question is, these have got to be the Sika deer causing this. Various bodies, including Transport Infrastructure Ireland, the Council, the NPWS, as well as Larnrod Iran, were approached to take action, but no part of the park has been fenced to keep the deer in. I mean, they're supposed to be free roaming. Are they just causing that much of an issue? Well, here's the thing when it comes to Sika deer. Uh, Shoot, spear, bow and arrow, or archery, I don't care. Take all of them out and eat them. So the only action had been the erection of a single solar powered sign on the N72 warning of deer. Iron erected fencing and took real action to protect the railways and passengers. Mr. Cronin said, no one knows how many thousands of Sika and red are wandering the roads. Well, can't be that many red, but the Sika, yeah, those invading Japanese deer. Well, East Asian deer, technically. They are out of control at epidemic levels. It's no longer one national route near Killarney. Counselors from across the county told of road incidents with deer crossing and jumping on cars. Insurance companies have been reluctant and, in some cases, refused to provide compensation, it was claimed.
what's new there?
Yep. Listowel counselor Michael Lien. Also, let's bring up a Sika deer. Said two of his constituents had a run in with deer. Oh, Sika. Had a run in with deer on roads. In one incident, a young woman's car had been written off, with the insurance company refusing to cover the damage. Carey County Council is in the process of carrying out a pilot scheme. Oh, yeah, there he is. This is a really good looking stag, I'll say. They reach somewhere around 600 pounds or a little over 280 kilograms.
I could see how it could take out a car, especially a car in Europe that weighs 500 pounds.
Oh, yeah, that Russell Crowe car. Yeah, that's anyway, it's still a good looking animal, but yeah, they should not be anywhere in Europe. Fallow deer technically should not be in Ireland as well. I forgot how many there are over on the island, but they were introduced there by the ancient Italians. Okay, so let's see. Um where were we? So the scheme involves installing virtual fence technology on two 1 kilometer stretches of roadway to investigate the reduction in deer collisions after the installation of the system. Virtual. Uh oh, I'm thinking digital. The pilot schemes will be rolled out in the coming months, and the areas will be monitored through a UCC research program. Meanwhile, just under 400 deer were called in Killarney National Park in 2025. Well, the question is, what species? If that's of the red deer, that is really bad.
It doesn't say which one.
If that's of the Sika deer, that's of no help. The majority of wild deer taken out in the 10,000 hectare park Sheesh, what is that? 20,000 acres? Oh, oh, I guess for a national park in Ireland, that's huge. In Killarney were the introduced sika. Should be all of them, but also the much larger native Killarney red deer. I really, unless it's got a certain disease or a massive physical problem, that makes sense. Um, Anything else, or let's say it's wreaking havoc on somebody's farm, I understand. But yeah, outside of that, you shouldn't be taking out the National Park Service here should not be taking out the native red deer. But yeah, the sika, take all of them out. Have the native Irish take them out. Okay. So, heading back in time from Sci News, rare ostrich-like dinosaur fossil found on Canadian island. Paleontologists. By the way, this is like shocking considering Western British Columbia, Canada, is not known for, which is where I'm guessing this is taking place. It's not known for many species of dinosaurs, especially ornithomimids. Paleontologists in Canada say they have recovered a dinosaur tail vertebra from 75 to 80 million year old marine rocks on a small island off the coast of British Columbia. Well, they haven't said Vancouver Island, so this is interesting. Providing the clearest evidence yet that bird like ornithomimosaurs once roamed the ancient Pacific coastline of North America. Well, it definitely makes sense. I think it's just we're more familiar with them over in Alberta. So, this is still fascinating to see. I think it's also a really good picture. It looks very much like an ornithomimus. There were a wide range of different species of ornithomimids during the Cretaceous period, first evolving around 140 million years ago, and then going extinct at the very end of the age of the dinosaurs or the Mesozoic era around 66 million years ago. So I wonder if it's one of those 18-foot long individuals or around 5 meters.
His face looks more like an emu to me. Not quite, but I don't know why it doesn't.
Somewhat. I guess you could say certain domestic ducks with like a downward beak or bill structure. The ornithomimids were also toothless. Now, when referring to ornithomimosaurs, that refers to the whole group of the ornithomimids. There are different ornithomimid subfamilies that are distantly related to each other, but they're all ornithomimosaurs. So, they were a group of fast running bird like theropod dinosaurs that lived during the Cretaceous period. Let's see, long legs, long necks, slender bodies. This one has a very slender body, almost a bit skinnier than like Gallimimus, Ornithomimus, which you could say is not necessarily surprising, but it's a bit more so compared to the other species, at least based on the drawing. Toothless beaks, Ornithomimids did not have teeth, and relatively small heads, giving them a strong resemblance to modern ostriches. I will say that the ostrich has a very round, circular skull structure and quite a thin bill structure, whereas ornithomimids had quite robust beaks or mouths, or at least jaws in general. Some species, such as Gallimimus and Ornithomimus, probably the two most famous species of Ornithomimus, with probably Struthiomimus not far behind. Struthiomimus did exist over in Alberta, Canada, possibly British Columbia, around 74 million years ago. Ornithomimus was around 75 million years ago over in Canada. So could grow more than 4 meters or 13 feet long. That's about Gallimimus size, maybe slightly longer. Ornithomimus could reach larger sizes, or at least lengths. Despite being theropods, ornithomimosaurs are thought to have been omnivores or opportunistic feeders, eating plants, small animals, and possibly eggs. Yeah, it is interesting when they're reconstructed. I think it was shown on certain 1980s, 70s depictions of ornithomimids being egg raiders, almost like the oviraptorids. But it's a huge mystery as to what these animals would have been feeding on. I do believe, however, there have been certain preserved remains of ornithomimids with gastrolids or stones inside the rib cage area. Um, they also might have been seed eaters to an extent, but it's very likely that they were overall omnivorous. So they were likely among the fastest dinosaurs of their time, with some estimates placing their top speed at around 50 to 60 kilometers an hour, or 31 to 37 miles per hour. I've seen faster speeds, like maybe around 45, but maybe that's a little exaggerated, but it might vary depending on the species. They had to be considering there were different species of quite nimble tyrannosaurs as well as dromaeosaur species that would have hunted them at the time. In their new paper, Dr. David Evans, a paleontologist at the University of Toronto and the Royal Ontario Museum, and his colleagues described a fossilized vertebra from the tail of an ornithomimosaur. The fossil dates back to the Campanian age of the late Cretaceous between 80 and 75 million years ago. So it seems to be a bit of an older species of ornithomimid compared to Ornithomimus, at least, or Struthiomimus. The specimen was collected in August 1999 from marine sediments of the Cedar District Formation on Denman Island, part of the Nanaimo group of Western Canada. Okay, let's bring up a larger species of dinosaur that possibly coexisted with it, the Centrosaurus. So Centro. So, there were different species of horned dinosaurs or ceratopsians that coexisted with the ornithomimids back in the late Cretaceous of Canada. And there were also different species of ankylosaurs and nodosaurs as well as the different species of duckbills or hadrosaurs. Now, Centrosaurus is a slightly older depiction, but it's not bad. There could be a bit more overall flesh or muscle added to the core of the body. Centrosaurus is an interesting species of ceratopsian. First, it's actually,
Here's an older one.
oh, yeah, this one. This must be like 1960s. It could be 70s, but that would be pushing it. Though there have been always different odd depictions of Centrosaurus. This Centrosaurus is a bit of a elongated frill compared to its overall body size. Now, maybe I could refer to a certain other subspecies, but usually with this much of a difference, it's its own distinct species, like in its overall morphology. But also um, that horn. It's almost as long as like a Styracosaurus horn to an extent. I mean, I like the overall drawing.
Here's one acting like a dog.
Oh yeah, this guy. Yeah, this Centrosaurus is still. I think it's a good depiction, but in terms of realisticness, it's quite off. Now, the ceratopsians likely could have reared up on their hind legs to occasionally probably help them in fights to an extent, but this would be quite risky if you have a massive horn in front of you, considering there is not any armor on their underbelly or their neck, and there wouldn't have been for even the armored ankylosaurs, but they likely didn't rear up on their hind legs. But likely they simply did this to reach up further into the trees when they decide to feed on certain species of ginkgos or conifers.
Okay, what's wrong with this guy?
They seem to be more of low browsers. Even you could say fern or flower grazers to an extent.
Oh, hold on.
This could be a Centrosaurus.
What's wrong with that horn?
Maybe something changed in recent.
You
Um,
got a fungus.
yeah, that's a very powerful fungus. Maybe he obtained. Well, what I'm trying to say is that maybe there were certain fossils that popped up recently with a longer, slightly curved horn. Now, the curved horn is known in Centrosaurus remains. They're also one of the most common species of ceratopsian to be discovered over in Alberta, Canada, and they lived in the region around 76 million years ago, coexisting with different species of tyrannosaurs like Albertosaurus. This animal was somewhere around 18 to 20 feet in length, or pushing about 6 meters, and probably weighed around 2 tons, likely existing in herds of at least 80 individuals, probably more, and coexisting with different species of hadrosaurs like the Parasaurolophus. But what was the other thing? Oh, so yes, it does belong to a separate lineage of ceratopsians, separate from Triceratops. This is a member of the Centrosaur lineage, whereas Triceratops is a member of the Chasmosaurs. But I think this is, along with that last depiction, probably one of the more accurate depictions, despite this looking like a 1990s or early 2000s picture. Okay, let's head back to the article. Let's see. So the specimen was collected in August 1999 from marine sediments of the Cedar District Formation on Denman Island. Interesting. So this animal possibly died, or likely died, over amongst the coastline. So that's interesting. Quite fascinating. And it's nice that nothing was, at least it doesn't look like anything was feeding on it, because you would have had different species of mosasaurs roaming the coast as well, which were the large marine reptiles at that time, part of the Nanaimo group of Western Canada. The fossil is to date only the second reported occurrence of dinosaur skeletal material from the Nanaimo group, and the first from Canadian outcrops. Wow. Well, that's really good to hear. I wonder what that distinct first one is, because I do recall certain other specimens, not just from this part of British Columbia, but even other regions. But they tend to be more fragmentary than obviously Alberta. They suggest the ornithomimosaur bone may have washed out to sea from the western margin of ancient North America, possibly carried by currents, shoreline transport, or even scavengers. Another possibility is that it came from a floating carcass that drifted offshore before disarticulating. Um, oh, it was just a single bone. Well, I mean, it's nice to have. That was to be expected, so it is one of those fragmentary remains. Not too
That
surprising.
means they're having to guess at everything else.
Yeah. Hmm. This is definitely a mysterious species of ornithomimosaur. That's why they're using the very basic term of this group of theropod dinosaurs. It's truly a big mystery as to who it is or what it could be. So, based on current interpretations of the paleolatitude of the Nanaimo Basin, the specimen was probably roughly latitudinally equivalent to outcrops of the two Medicine and Judith River formations to the east, part of the northern faunal province of Campanian Laramidian dinosaurs along the western interior seaway. To date, remains of ornithomimosaurs identifiable to lower taxonomic levels have not been described from the Judith River and Two Medicine formations. Okay, so just to remind everybody, these are when referring to the Two Medicine and Judith River formations, they're referring to two separate fossil formations over in this part of Canada. So, although a rich ornithomimid fauna is known from the Dinosaur Park Formation of Alberta, with species in several genera known from complete skeletons. Also, the Two Medicine and Judith River formations, like the Dinosaur Park Formation, are located over in Alberta. And they do consist of different species of late Cretaceous dinosaurs from slightly different times in the late Cretaceous. So, whether or not Pacific coastal dinosaurs may also have had a latitudinal diversity gradient, and whether or not the intervening mountain ranges impacted dinosaur biogeography by promoting allopatric diversification in the Campanian. So, the Campanians from somewhere around 74 to 75 million years ago to about 86 million years ago of the Cretaceous are questions that can only be answered with additional fossil discoveries. Well, considering, yeah, this was extremely fragmentary. Yeah, so this ornithomimosaur, big mystery. Okay, well,
Basically,
but
they got one bone and said, "Oh, here's what we got."
whatever leg bone it is, I don't recall. I'm not sure if they said it was like a femur bone, which would be the thigh bone, shin bone, or
They got a toe.
like the ankle. Um,
No, I was kidding.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, they didn't along with it. It'd also be really nice if they got part of the head. Okay. Let's head forward in time to another part of the world. Okay. So, well, or not. Um, Slightly adjacent to the area from brobible.com. British Columbia campers startled by enormous mountain lions scoping them out in the dark. So, British Columbia, Canada is home to the highest concentration of mountain lions in North America. This is very true, especially Vancouver Island. And campers throughout the region are advised to be vigilant and exercise caution when out in the wild. But these giant cats are masters of stealth, so it is often impossible to know if they are watching you. Yeah, I think I'd rather have them watching than, I guess, certain species of dromaeosaurs, but that sounds fun too. One group of campers at Harrison Lake in British Columbia, not too far north over the border from the States, were stunned to see an absolutely massive mountain lion lurking in the woods, leering at them in the dark with an ominous, watchful eye. Okay, so let's scroll further down. So, uh, okay, in two videos, user Calliopelois on TikTok documented their close encounter with the abnormally large mountain lion lurking just on the edge of their campsite as they cooked in the dark underneath a tarpaulin. The first video has raked up over 1 million views in the first 24 hours since it was shared. Well, what happened here? Is that him? Whoa. Um, wow. That is a very fluffy cougar. He seems to be slightly startled.
Looks huge.
Yeah, he just seems calm. They are quite robust, and I guess you could say some of the largest cougars across the Americas are located over in British Columbia, especially along the coast. They feed on stellar sea lions in this region as well, with the sea lions reaching somewhere around 2,500 pounds or pushing over 1,200 kilograms. So, um, second clip shows curious large cat sniffing around. It's impossible to know for certain why the mountain lion is there, but most likely is the aroma of food wafting through the air which drew in its attention. Now, they're not feeding on the adult stellar sea lions, but they will go after juveniles. I don't think he's attracted because of the food. He might have just been resting and then happened to just wake up.
He's like, "Wait, where'd you guys come from?"
But yeah, he is like certain cougars, quite I guess tolerant of the people being there. But yeah, he seems quite calm. I'm
He
guessing
just
it's
looks like a cat.
yeah. They are much more closely related to house cats, different species of lynx, like the bobcat, Eurasian lynx, compared to other large cat species such as snow leopards, tigers, and lions. Let's see. So they also are related to the extinct saber-toothed cats. But, the saber-toothed cats belong to a completely different lineage of cats, the Microcanthidae. So, um, many made cat distribution system jokes, but my favorite comment from someone with the handle lobster simply asked, "So, what's the next step in this situation?" Okay. Is that it? Seems that way. Okay. Well, I'm glad was a healthy cougar overall. He's definitely well fed. I think it's a wild one. He seems kind of pudgy. Let's head over to another part of the
Oh,
world.
it looks like he's eating a ton.
Yeah, and back in time. It's probably that blubber from the sea lions.
What just happened?
Not that far back in time.
What what just happened?
Uh, um, uh, yeah, it's the Ice Age one. Here we go. Okay, so from Santa Fe, New Mexican.com. New Mexico fossil fueled discovery of new species Ice Age musk ox relative. Well, if it's a musk ox relative, then it's probably a member of the goat family. So let's take a look, considering the musk ox are the largest species of goat today. Wonder what we're looking at. Seems to be the skull. Left, the skull of Speleotherium logani. Interesting. So yeah, it was definitely in a cave. Seems to be water inside of it. Um. Oh, it's a relative of the takin. I guess we could look up these guys too. The takin is a large species of goat, probably the second largest species of goat, that exists over in adjacent Himalayan ranges of like Bhutan, northern India, and China. Okay, so Takin.
That was easy. Wait, they still exist?
They're endangered. I believe they're like is less than a couple thousand individuals, but they do inhabit different um certain mountain ranges over in northern and central China as well. They can reach somewhere around there we go. This is another distinct there's a few different subspecies. Somewhere around 800 pounds or a little over 380 kilograms.
Okay, this guy is laid back.
Yeah, they, they always have this kind of like I wouldn't say capybara, but
That's what it
uh,
looks like.
who would it be? Like
It's smiling kind of like a capybara.
yeah, almost like they're like the quokkas or certain like rock wallabies of China. Like they have never heard of communism, or it's because they created it. I'm not sure. Let's head to the article. Where is it? Here we go. Okay, so if you grab the ancient muskox by the horns, you might find a new genus and species. A New Mexico fossil has been determined to be a new genus and species of an Ice Age relative of the muskox. The horns on the skull found among many bones in the aptly named Muskox Cave in Carlsbad Caverns National Park set Speleotherium logani, or Logan's austral screwbox, apart. So the late Pleistocene's fossil record is well known, said New Mexico Museum of Natural History and Science Paleontology curator Gary Morgan. So the discovery came as a bit of a surprise. Paleontologist Richard White, Jim Med, and museum paleontology curator Gary Morgan authored a paper on the discovery published recently in the New Mexico Museum of Natural History and Science Bulletin. Yeah, the late Pleistocene, even for New Mexico, because this makes it gives it almost like a modern or at least in recent centuries, sort of Asian appeal to it, at least since I mentioned the Talkin. There were different, more recognizable Ice Age animals existing here over in New Mexico, as well as corresponding Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, California, such as the Columbian mammoth. In fact, there have been over 80 different Columbian mammoth individuals. Let's bring up a Columbian mammoth bird. Um,
Did you say a Colombian mammoth herd?
well, we can bring up a single like bull, or even a mother with its young, but herd would be nice as well. Oh, right, these guys. I think it's one of those early 2010s models because they're kind of skinny. And you can say the Colombian mammoth has a bit more of like a lean sort of physique compared to woolly mammoths, considering they contain much less body fat compared to their northern um, ancestors technically, because the Columbian mammoth did derive from the steppe mammoth as well as the woolly mammoth. The steppe mammoth was slightly larger than the Columbian mammoth, also much furrier. So, even though these are depicted as like larger um, Asian elephants, at least in that depiction, they were closer related. But there is evidence for at least was it Columbian mammoths or mastodons. Actually, it might have been a Columbian mammoth specimen where two males died in battle. So that's pretty accurate. This is also a really good representation of a Columbian mammoth on the grasslands of Pleistocene. Well, this is saying Florida. There are specimens of Columbian mammoths as well as giant ground sloths, saber-toothed cats, especially Smilodon fatalis, over in Pleistocene or Ice Age Florida, as well as certain other areas of the eastern United States. This is also a good representation of a Columbian mammoth over in probably some part of Wyoming. I think, judging by the pronghorn, I think there's some bison in the background in the landscape. I think it's like Grand Teton National Park. They likely were there too, along with larger species of bison as well. The American bison had not evolved yet. And there's even one, there's one right beneath them. Anyway, I guess if he grew up with them, I mean, sure, maybe it's just a buddy. But, the pronghorn, modern pronghorn probably hadn't evolved yet. There have been several different species of ancient pronghorn, not just from the Pleistocene, but as well as the, former Pliocene epoch, so from about 3 to 8 million years ago, and the former Miocene epoch, so pushing as far as 20 million years. Let's see, where was I? I guess I'll get to other animals. So we didn't expect to find a new animal. We were looking at a late Pleistocene cave and we thought, okay, everything that's here are going to be animals that have been described before. Logan's Austral screwbox lives in the Rankolabrian North American land mammal age. So it's also, this is named after the La Brea Tar Pit site in Los Angeles, California, which has brought thousands of dire wolf specimens, hundreds of saber-toothed cat or Smilodon fatalis specimens, as well as different Columbian mammoth fossils, different species of ground sloths, as well as giant camels and bison in the region, and mastodons too. So named after the Rancho La Brea fossil site in California, commonly known as the La Brea tar pits. In the Ice Age, megafauna like mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and ground sloths dominated. There have been around 5 different species of ground sloths that have been found, at least over in Texas. Likely, well, there have been different localities over in New Mexico as well, such as Paramylodon megalonyx. Let's bring up maybe the other one. Let's stick to Paramylodon. So Para, My. Oh, here he popped up. So Paramylodon was a medium-sized species of ground sloth. There were
Wait a minute.
not
Did we do him yesterday?
no. Last time maybe we were talking about an Ice Age incident. There were also creatures like, I believe, Northobronian, which was somewhere around 500 pounds or right around 220 kilograms. The Paramylodon was slightly larger, probably pushing around 600 to 750 pounds, or right around 300 to 350 kilograms. And they were large herbivores, or at least especially compared to today's 20-pound sloths, or weighing around 7 to 8 kilograms. But these animals did walk on all fours, and they walked on the sides of their feet as well, which is pretty much what modern day sloths today do as well, but they're less mobile. The giant ground sloths were fairly quick when it came to simply being maneuverable or being able to make a quick turn. They did not really have the ability to run very much, but they definitely were capable of fighting off the different species of saber-toothed cats in the region, as well as short-faced bears and even different packs of dire wolves. Though possibly dire wolves weren't going after sloths, certainly was possible for younger individuals. I'm referring to adults. It would be quite risky. Oh yes, it's definitely a much older picture. But I still think they look really good. It could be Paramylodon. It could be Aramatherium, considering that large species of ground sloth weighing well over 5 to 6 tons existed over in North America.
But how big's the bird?
Yeah, I believe this is one of the last species of in quote, terror bird to exist. Might be a member of the forest rockodile lineage of terror birds, but it's like 2 feet tall, or maybe like 6.7 meters, and might have weighed maybe 15 pounds. It was fairly small, a little over 6 kilograms. Columbian mammoths could also reach somewhere around 8 to 9 tons. So let's see. In 1976 and 1977, paleontologist Lloyd Logan, the species namesake, found 50 species of Pleistocene mammals at the cave. Whoa, wow, that's a lot. I mean, it's good to hear when you found 50 of a certain species, or maybe a handful and still just a smaller number of each. But that's astounding. Now, the question is how many are like different species of Pleistocene squirrels, Pleistocene snakes. Also in New Mexico, we have found evidence, I believe, for the North of Brunei species of ground sloth of fossilized dung intact in the cave. So reaching the fossils requires rappelling down around 100 feet or pushing around 30 meters. But after that, little was done to study the fossils, which were stored at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History for decades. Of course, sheesh, I hate when that occurs.
Yeah, they don't
And
let you see them.
yeah. And the muskox relative was misidentified as Eucerotherium collinum or shrubrox. Ish, that's unfortunate. They really just sat in a drawer, more like 20 drawers. Yeah, that's seems to be very typical. A few years ago, however, Morgan got involved in an inventory of fossils at Carlsbad Caverns and suggested studying the fossils collected from Muskox Cave in the 1970s. Ian White, who is based in Hot Springs, South Dakota, spent a week at the Smithsonian, then trucked the fossils to South Dakota and Albuquerque. How many were you able to take? Gary, you know that muskox from Muskox Cave is not what everybody says it is. Morgan recalled lead author White telling him over the phone. The horns were all wrong, White said, and the specimen was smaller than Eucerotherium. Logan's austral shrubbox would have stood about 4 feet tall at the shoulder and weighed between 400 and 700 pounds. So about the size of today's Himalayan takin. That's good to hear. Longer horns, it seems, however. The puzzle species started to come together. White was familiar with specimens of a muskox like animal found in Mexico and Belize. There have also been certain mammoth and mastodon fossils discovered in different parts of central, actually southern Mexico as well, and corresponding Belize. You don't really find any mammoth fossils south of North America. Then when you're looking at different species of, or at least like the southern mastodon, then you find many different specimens in different countries of South and Central America. But the skull found in New Mexico was key to distinguish the species. When we had this complete material, this beautiful skull and a bunch of limb bones, most of the skeleton from Muskox Cave, he put two and two together and realized that and his mystery animal from Mexico and Central America were the same thing. And they were something totally different. Logan, now retired, contributed a reconstruction drawing to the paper. He was thrilled to hear that somebody was finally studying the animals of the fossils that he collected, and even more thrilled that we were considering naming this new species in his honor. Morgan said, but it's entirely appropriate. This guy did all the work and did all this complicated technical caving to get in there and remove the fossils. I think, okay, yeah, him. Yeah, those are much longer horns. Also, a bit more of a narrow jaw structure compared to the Himalayan takin. But that is quite. I guess they also gave it a lot of muscle too. The Takins are relatively stocky, and so are a lot of the larger goat species. You look at a muskox; it's very stocky, but it's also kind of fat because it lives in the Arctic. Okay, well, thanks for joining, and we are streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. From prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guy Live Daily News. Happy International Ornithomima Day, and remember that nothing's better than all animals all the time.